Oh, right. Here we are. Welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I am your host, Duck. And today we have episode 17. Holy cow. We're chugging along. Uh, Hopefully everybody had a good day. The weather has been fairly nice past couple of weeks. Couple exceptional days of like really hot days, but it's been nice. So hope you guys are staying safe during the hot weather and staying cool otherwise. Okay. um, just to cover it real quick. I know we cover it every week, but I do have a beginner's photography workshop coming up with Milford Photo August 8th at 9 a.m. in the morning. And today's class, actually, is the photos that I'm going to be using for today's class were taken as last week's workshop that I had with Milford Photo on their beginner's photo walk. So we'll be covering that. But anyway, so if you know anybody who's interested in learning how to use their camera for the first time, point them towards Milford Photo, either Milford Photo website, the Facebook page, or the meetup.com page, Milford Photo. And also up in the Torrington, Plymouth, Harwington, Litchfield area, I'm going to be doing an adult education class starting the end of September. It's a 5-week introductory class to photography. So if you know anybody who wants to get a little bit more serious with their photography and they're just starting out and they don't know what the heck they're doing, and point them in that direction. It's with Ed Advance up in Torrington. Okay, enough of that. Let's get back to this. All right, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, no, last week, week before, I think it was last week, I did a beginner's photo walk. I do a couple every year with Milford Photo. People who buy their camera from Milford Photo, they want to learn how to use it. We put these classes together and I show them the basics of how to get proper exposure under different situations, and run through a few simple exercises. We meet down at City Hall in Milford because it's a nice little area and there's enough to photograph there, and we always end up by the end of the class we end up behind City Hall, down on that lower level that kind of overlooks the waterfall, and it's got the iconic view of the waterfall with the church in the background. That scene has been photographed ad nauseum, and if you belong to any of the photo sharing sites, Connecticut photo sharing sites, you'll see variations of this scene come up. And but anyway, the question arose, it was how can you get your camera to a slow enough shutter speed to be able to make the waterfalls look nice and silky smooth while trying to photograph it in bright midday sun? And the obvious answer is, well, you really can't. You can't. In order to extend your shutter speed, you have to cut light out in some other way. And that would be your ISO or your aperture. And depending on the lens you have, you may be limited to how small of an aperture opening you can get. Either f22, f36, whatever the smallest might be. And even then, with bright midday sun, you may not be able to get a slow enough shutter speed to really slow down the effect of the waterfall, so that you get that nice silky smooth look. The other issue is, in order to do that properly, oh no, give me a second. Dropping my pen here. In order to be able to do that effectively during the day, you need to use what is called an ND filter, or a neutral density filter. In essence, if you never heard of a neutral density filter, it's basically like putting a pair of sunglasses on the front of your lens. It cuts out a lot of the light coming into the camera, which effectively just instead of being, bracketing to the really, really bright, actually I should be on this side, to the really, really bright light, you're cutting out a lot of light and you're shifting your exposure parameters more towards the being able to go with darker light. And in effect, you can really slow down your shutter and allow that light or the water to flow through the frame a lot more, creating that nice silky smooth flowing water effect that you normally see with a waterfall. Okay, the thing is that in order to do that with a neutral density filter and a slow shutter, you also need a tripod. Okay, so here we were in a class with a bunch of beginners, no ND filters, no, great lenses that allow you to really cut out a lot of light. Okay, bright, harsh light, and no tripods. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, one technique is that you can use Photoshop to fake the effect. Okay, so let me switch over to this, and as you can see, this is the final edit that I did earlier today. And if actually, let me zoom in here and bring this up. Okay. You can see that we have a nice kind of blurred effect to the waterfall. This was not taken with an ND filter. This was not taken with a slow shutter speed. And this was taken handheld. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, we have to use a few very simple principles that are available in Photoshop, and that is the ability to use blend layers to blend various layers, so that the underlying layer of one layer goes through and shows through the layer above it. So what we do is we take a series of multiple shots, and if possible, with as little movement as possible. So either you got to brace yourself, or you just got to be really, really, really steady holding your camera. All right. I usually tell people, if you don't have a tripod, find a pole, a tree, a fence post, a rock, a stone wall, a side of a building, something solid that you can brace up against, or place your camera onto, in order to minimize any movement. And then what we do is we just take a series of still images. All right, let me see if I can get one. Just one here. Oops. All right, that's basically what it looks like. Okay. Um, a- and uh, so the reason we need multiples is because you can see, even though there is a little bit of camera movement, let me see if I can get my little zoom thing here. Even though there is a little bit of camera blur, subject blur through the camera, it's not enough to make these waterfalls look like that atypical silky, downward waterfall effect. Okay. But if we understand the principles of basic photography, and the principle of blend modes, we can fake it with Photoshop. So what we need to do is we need to take a series of images, a lot of images, so that from frame 1 to frame 2, the water flowing down looks different. Okay. So now if we think about it, we have a couple of still elements in our frame. The rocks are not moving. Okay. The background scene, the trees, well, we'll cover that in a minute. But basically, the structure, the background, any features, because they are stationary, they're not going to be moving within the frame. Okay. None of these elements move. The only thing that is moving is the water that's overflowing that upper lip and flowing down. Okay. So we can take advantage of the fact that the pixels, all right, the pixels within the waterfall area are going to be different from frame to frame to frame. Okay. Because the path that it goes down and the cascades and the splashes and everything that creates this waterfall, it's not going to be the same from frame to frame. There's going to be changes. Okay. The splashes are going to be different. The flows are going to be different, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So we can use a blend effect where we take the lighter parts of all these cascading, the water cascading down, and we can apply a layer blend mode that builds up on itself. Okay, that builds up on itself, and we'll cover that in detail in a second. Okay, and then once we have that build up, we just manipulate it to give it that silky water flow effect, and we mask it out so that effect is only being applied to a very specific portion of the frame. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay. So hopefully that kind of sort of made sense for you. Okay. All right. So this is the pretty much the finished view right here. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break it down and walk through the entire process. And we're going to go beyond. Oh, what am I'm missing something? What am I missing? Oh, the mask. Okay. And in the process, not only are we going to cover, how to get that waterfall effect, but we'll also cover a few other things about how to control tone and lighting and all that good stuff that goes into creating a nice landscape shot. Okay. We all set for that? Okay. I'm going to keep this file open. I'm just going to start fresh from Oops, Bill's trying to get in, and I apologize. I did not hear the ding 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 letting me know you were waiting. Sorry, Bill.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I was talking way too loud. Okay, all right.
Looks like a picture I have taken.
You and 100,000 other people in the Milford area.
Anybody who goes to Milford, I wonder if that's why Milford Photo set up shop there.
Oh, you know what? They do have a very picturesque location between the green, the city hall, the little river that runs along this whole section. There's a little bridge there, and then they have the marina area that's very picturesque, and then further down you have the beach. So yeah, they're in a golden location. Okay. All right. So let me get Lightroom. All right. Now, I've already made my selections. I have not done anything in Lightroom to pre-edit. So normally I would pre-edit these. I did not do anything to them. So that way you get a sense of, you know, what can be done in Photoshop. All right. So you can do, even though I'm starting with Lightroom to import all my images into Photoshop, I'll show you how you can also do it without starting in Lightroom if you want to just load your images into Photoshop. But for this effect, what I want you to notice is that I put my camera on continuous mode in order to kind of minimize any kind of handshaking. And I took a series of images of the waterfall, trying to keep my hand as steady as possible. But you can see that even that, you can see there's a little bit of a wobble. Oops. A little bit of a wobble from frame to frame. You can see that little shift as I toggle back and forth. Okay. So don't worry about that. All right. The key here is to get a variety of images for the waterfall. Okay. That's what we want. And for this to work effectively, you need a lot of frames. You need a lot of frames. Okay. I normally tell people a minimum of at least 10 frames. Okay. If you can do more, go for it. Just keep in mind that if you're working with full frame images, full frame raw images, you are going to be taxing your system the more frames you have. But because the effect requires a variety of images to build the effect, you're going to need at least 10. Okay. If you're not concerned about, you know, keeping a large image, you know, to print, you're always welcome to downsize it before you get heavily into the effect. And that's probably what I'm going to do as we go into this one. I'll downsize it. Okay. So the first things first is I'm going to grab my first image here, and I'm going to shift click and grab my last image. And I have 10 images selected for this. And it's 10 images in sequential order. Okay. Then I'm just going to go edit in, and then all the way down at the bottom. Oh, you know what? Give me 1 second. I apologize. I should be sharing my screen, shouldn't I? So you guys can see what I am doing. Where is
Waterfall.
share? There we go. Okay. All right. So we got my 10 images selected. We're going to go right click. Okay. Edit in, and then all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see open as layers in Photoshop. All right, open as layers in Photoshop. Or you can also go to the menu up at the top, edit. Let's see. No, photo, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Okay. And once you do that, it's going to go ahead and load them all in. It's going to take a while because we're dealing with 10 individual full frame images that it has to open up, import into Photoshop, and then move it into a stack. Okay. So you can see I have a pretty good computer, and you can see how long this is taking. So depending on the quality of your computer, this may take a little bit. Okay. The other way, if you don't want to come in from Lightroom, the other way you can do it is once you open up Photoshop, you're just going to go up to the top menu. You're going to go File, Scripts. Okay, so about 2/3 of the way down, 3/4 of the way down, it says Scripts, and then let's see, where is it? Load files into stack. Load files into stack. Okay, and then when you do that, it's going to open up a dialog box. Okay, you're going to browse to where your source images are. You're going to select the first, shift click, select the last, and then just say, okay. Okay. And it's going to do the same thing. It's going to go through the process, give it a few minutes to load it up, and you're good to go. All right. First thing I'm going to do just for this tutorial is I'm going to size down my image to by 50%. Yeah, that ought to do it. Okay, just to keep things sped up so we don't my system doesn't lag too much behind. Okay, all right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and group this into a stack. All right, oops. Let's click, shift, click, and select the entire column here. All right, and we're going to go Control G or Control Option G in the Mac, I believe, and we're going to create a group. I'm just going to call this frames because these are all the frames that are going to create this effect. Okay, and believe it or not, we're going to select a few random frames to create our master frame. Because like I mentioned earlier, we're going to create a frame where we mask out the waterfall and we allowed that waterfall effect to come through. And you'll see what I mean when we get to it. Okay. But so we grouped it, and we need to address a couple of things. Okay. All right. The first thing we need to do is we need to align everything. All right. So let me go ahead and zoom in. And I want you to notice here. Oops. Oh, come on. There we go. As I turn off the visibility on each layer, I want you to notice how this building shifts from frame to frame. Okay, shift, 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 shift. So what that means is each frame is not lined up one on top of each other according to the subject. Okay, because I was hand holding it, there was a little bit of movement. Can't be helped. So we need to correct that. So I'm going to click on the first image, shift click, select the bottom image. And then we're going to go back to our menu up here. And we're going to go, let's see, layers. No, what was it? Edit. We're auto align layers. So we go edit, a little bit more than halfway, auto align layers. Okay. And this dialog box pops up. I normally keep it to auto. The Photoshop's fairly smart in figuring out what it needs to align. It's going to see that each image is the same. And it's just going to say, okay, well, you know, this church does not line up with the church on the next layer, which doesn't line up with the church on the third layer. Let me line them all up. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. So keeping it auto, I'm just going to hit OK. And we're going to let it do its thing. Okay. Now, it did it fairly fast, but you can imagine what it would be like if you were working with a full frame, full resolution image. Okay. All right. So now we have everything aligned, and you're going to notice, all right, if we zoom in over here, you're going to see that there's a little discrepancies here. We got this edge that's kind of just at an angle. All right. And that's because it used the church to align everything else everything up on, and all the edges now look a little bit wonky. If you wanted to, you can use a little bit of AI to fill those edges in, or do what I do. I'm just going to click on the crop tool. So just, you know, select your crop tool. Keep to my original ratio, or you can change your ratio if you want. I'm just going to keep it original. And I'm just going to bring in my edges just until it cuts out all those areas on the corners. Okay. The other thing is I'm going to use this to rotate part of it. I'm going to rotate it until the church looks upright, because it was a little bit at an angle. Okay. That looks pretty good. All right. Now, we've covered this before. I want to make it a point that you remember this. There is a checkbox. You can check to delete the cropped pixels if you want. All right. By default, I like to keep this unchecked just in case I want to change my crop. And I don't want to remove, you know, I don't want to delete anything that I don't want to. In this case, I'm not really cropping a lot. I doubt I will keep any of that on the outside. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Go ahead and delete the pixels. And once it crops it, anything outside that crops just gets taken away and we're good to go. Okay. But just keep in mind you have that option. All right. Okay. So we have our images now all stacked up. Now, let me zoom in here. Okay. Disregard the sensor spots. My lens was filthy when I took this image, and I didn't realize it until I opened it up here. All right. A little personal shaming. Look at this. Look at this. Can you guys see that? All these spots up here. Look at that. That's disgusting. All right. I'm outing myself here. All right, guys. I'm outing myself for your benefit. All right. Here we go. Okay. So clean your lens every once in a while. All right. So now if I turn off the layers one at a time, you're going to notice that the church does not move. All right. As I turn them off, there we go. You're going to see some movement in the trees. That's not bad. Okay. But what you will notice is we have a road here going in front of the church. And on every frame, we have the cars in a slightly different position. We're going to take advantage of this fact to remove the vehicles, okay? Because if this was a single frame, what would we have to rely on to remove these vehicles? We would have to rely on the AI, all right? And when AI gets into play, sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it wrong, and we just have to take a gamble. In this case, because we actually have data, behind like this black vehicle here, because that vehicle in the next frame is not going to be there, we have data behind there, right? So in this case, we got another vehicle to take its place. But if we travel far enough, we're going to see, oh, look at that. That whole area there where there used to be a black truck is no longer has a black truck. So we can grab that part there to remove that the black vehicle, correct? All right, so actually what we're going to do is we have 3 vehicles, all right? All right, we have one frame where these vehicles are pretty much overlapping each other, right? You see that? But we also have another frame where there's nothing there. Okay, nothing there. So we can take this frame here, all right, and this frame, or actually this frame might be even better in this frame, okay? So we can take this frame, okay, that kind of isolates the vehicles, all right? We have one vehicle here and one vehicle here, okay? So now we have to find a frame within the 10 frames that we took where there is no vehicle here and no vehicle here. All right, follow? So that way we can then use that underlying frame to mask out these vehicles. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is that's image 1817. Okay, and then if we go to the top, this one here. Okay, this one here, we can use this frame here, all right, to help mask out, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this image here, all right? Control Command J makes a copy, all right? I'm going to rename that new master, okay? And I'm going to bring it to the top, okay? Bring it to the top, all right? I'm going to hide that temporarily, all right, because that's this frame. And now I want to bring back, make visible this frame, okay? I want to make this frame visible because this area here and this area here does not have a vehicle. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring this back into view. Okay. I'm going to add a mask. Okay. I'm going to zoom into this right here. And then I'm going to select a soft round brush. Okay, soft round brush. Let's make it small. Holy cow, that's a large brush. Okay, there we go. Black as my foreground color because my mask is white. White shows everything, all right? Black hides. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally paint out these vehicles. And because the underlying, the underlying frame, all right, this one here, all right, because the underlying frame does not have any vehicles there, it allows me to look through and gain the data from that background. Okay, make sense? Okay. All right. The next thing I want to do, actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this. Okay, Control J. All right, and we're going to call this, I'm going to call it patch for now. All right, and I'm going to move it up. Okay, now the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to, let's see, color. We're going to make this blue. Okay. I don't want to disturb my original frame. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to take these two and I'm going to move it out of that group. Okay. So I have my original frames in a group and I have the two that I pulled out, that I copied and pulled out, that are going to be used to fix mistakes, to fix problem areas, including removing cars. Okay, so I've removed the cars. All right, let me zoom in. And now we're going to do a little bit of cleanup. Okay, I'm going to use the AI. Where's my AI remove tool? Okay, and I'm just going to remove like this signpost here. All right, this yard sign here, this yard sign here, maybe this little light. That looks like a commemorative plate on a rock. I'm going to leave it there. Oh, this sign right there we'll get rid of. Okay. That looks good. Okay. And I typically, just like the crop, make sure you have sample all layers. All right. And we have create new layer. Okay. So just like the crop, if you delete the edge, it's gone forever. If you do not have create new layer activated, it's going to overwrite the current layer and you're not going to be able to undo it. So I typically keep this create new layer checked on. All right. And I can always combine layers afterwards. All right. The other thing is, it's a little grayed out because I've already made selections, but I have remove after each stroke unchecked. All right. So that means every time I make I paint on my canvas, it's not going to automatically remove it. It has to wait for my input. I either have to click on this check mark or hit the enter key. I usually just hit the enter key because it's easier. Once I hit the enter key, it does its little thing. Oh, it'd be nice if I put it on the correct layer. There we go. And it gets rid of the, whatchamacallit, the sign and things like that. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit here. What the heck? That sidewalk looks gross. I'm gonna clean that up, see if it'll fix it. Good enough. All right. The other thing is we have all these wires that are going across the building. All right. On the side of the building, all these power lines. Personal, nitpick. I'm going to get rid of them. Okay. I'm going to get rid of them. Okay. The nice thing is here I have my remove tool selected. Okay. My AI remove tool. Okay. Before I make any selections, if we go up all the way to the top, you're going to see this little drop down that says find distractions. And if you click on it, you're going to see you have general distractions, people, and wires and cables. And we covered this in a previous episode, but just to remind you, we have this here, find distractions. We're going to go ahead and click on wires and cables and just click on remove. It's going to analyze the image it's using, Adobe Sensei, Adobe's AI, and look at that. What a fantastic job it did at removing those wires. Until you get over here and you say, well, for some reason it didn't get rid of those. Probably because it was a little too confusing. Okay. If we look closely, you can see that the wire goes horizontally across the face of the building. But what else goes horizontally across the face of the building? The siding. So it had a hard time discerning what was wire and what was siding. All right. So that's okay. What we can do is we can just go ahead and paint in. All right. What we want, as a matter of fact, we can click, and if we hold the shift key and click, we can draw a straight line. So click, shift click, and we can draw straight lines. Okay. This part here where it goes in front, it's not really noticeable. I'm not going to bother with those. Hit the enter key. It's going to analyze it, do its thing, and remove the distractions. And it did a fairly decent job. Okay. Can't see it on this level. A little bit, maybe this dark one here. So, and that dark one, and then that dark one. Let's see if it'll fix that. Okay. Let's zoom out. Not as noticeable. Good. Did a good job. Okay. And you can see that it did a really decent job. No more wires are visible. No more distractions. Now, if you wanted to, you can come in and you can remove any other distractions that you may not like, like these twigs sticking up out of the edge there. Okay. It's entirely up to you. I'm not going to go overly crazy. And let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. All right, but you can do a lot of cleanup. We'll leave Mr. Crow. You can see Mr. Crow here in the corner. We'll leave Mr. Crow. Okay. So now, if you look on your layer stack, everything that was removed is available as a independent layer. Okay. So now you can say, oh, well, I didn't mean to remove such and such. You can just either delete the layer or whatever you want. Okay. So for example, this is the one with the wires. All right. There's the wires back. Okay. But what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the top one, shift click on the bottom. All right. And I want to combine all of these together into one stamp layer group. Okay. So we can just do menu up here. merge layers, all right, meaning merge the selected layers, all right. So merge layers is whatever selected, it's going to merge that, okay. All right, and we're going to rename this as master layer, okay. Just, yeah, master layer, or you know what, how about combo? So it's our composite or comp. That's even better. Composite, comp layer. Okay. All right. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Right now, we're just kind of doing a little bit of cleanup preparation in advance of doing the effect, because once we start doing an effect, it's going to be more difficult to create this top stamp layer. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. Okay. So it's now comp copy, and I'm going to rename that to comp background, BG. And I'm going to put that all the way at the bottom. So we made an Oreo cookie. All right. We have a stamp layer. All right. Meaning that we combined all our composites of removing the wires, the cars, the signs, and all that. Okay. Then we have our original frames that we imported. Okay. And then we have a duplicate of that top comp layer that we're going to use as our base. Okay. And the in-betweens are going to be building on that base. That's why we need that there. Okay. All right. If I haven't lost you completely, now it's time to work on the waterfall. Okay. For this, I'm going to turn off the visibility of that top layer. Okay. And we're going to expand our group. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of a blend mode, layer blend mode. Okay. And the nice thing is we can apply it to the entire stack all in one shot. Okay. You know what? I never tried doing it to this. All right. So we're going to do, I don't think it's going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work. I don't think. No. Okay. We're going to take our first frame and our last frame within that group. Okay. We're going to change the blend mode. Okay. And what we're going to do is we want to take the light parts of the waterfall. Okay. And if you know, the first group here is a darken group. The second one is our lighten group. And we have either the screen mode or a lighten mode. Okay. Screen, I think, is a little bit too harsh. Okay. Might be a little bit too harsh. Okay. And then we have our lighten mode. Okay. We have our lighten mode, and you can see right away, just by doing that effect, we're getting a more of a whatchamacallit. Oops. More of that silky waterfall effect. Okay. Not quite there. Not quite there. All right. But almost. Okay. What we need to do now is we're going to need to make this blend a little bit more between each one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the opacity. No, maybe not. Let's go. Let's go to screen and lower the opacity and see if that gives us any better effect. Okay. Actually, that's not too bad. Okay. So depending on your image, Okay, depending on your image. You can use either of these modes. We can, let's see, how about linear dodge? No, that looks lighter color. Lighter color, maybe. Okay. Overlay and soft light, no, none of those, none of those. All right, so we have either screen or lighten. All right, now screen, it just really amplifies that lightness. If you use the screen, we need to add a little bit of opacity. So in essence, what we're doing is we are lowering by use of opacity how much of that effect is really going to interact with the layers below it. Okay. So about 33%, about a third. That looks pretty good. Okay. Now you're going to notice that it's going to affect everything else. Don't worry about that, because remember, we're going to use a mask to isolate just the waterfall. All right, just the waterfall. Okay. So we're going to keep that. Okay. And like I said, we can also use the lighten mode. So if the lighten mode isn't bright enough, that's okay, because there are ways of dealing with that as well. Okay. As a matter of fact, here, we'll do this. We're going to go to screen mode first. To fix the overblow, we just bring the opacity down. All right, until it looks favorable to you. Okay. The nice thing is, once you mask it, you can always come back and change this opacity layer later. Okay. All right. And then that's pretty much it for this. If we use the lighten mode, okay, the lighten mode, there's going to be additional steps needed. Okay, and additional steps needed. But I think personally, it comes out looking a little bit more natural than using the screen mode. So let's walk through that process, okay? All right. So to catch up and put everybody on the right track, we selected the top layer, shift click the bottom layer of our frames, changed it to lighten mode, and we're keeping the opacity at 100%. Okay, keeping the opacity at 100%. And we're going to go ahead and just collapse that frame. Okay. Now we're going to take this comp layer. I'm gonna unhide it again. All right. Notice how we have a change in the waterfall. All right, but we need it because why? Remember, we got rid of all those cars. Look what those cars look like with that blend mode in place. Okay, imagine trying to fix this after you applied that blend mode. That's why we do the fixing first. Okay, make sense? All right, we're gonna come here. Let me zoom out. I'm going to apply a mask. All right, so we go to our mask tool. Okay, apply a mask. Okay, and we're gonna select a brush. All right, nice soft round brush. We have one that we used earlier. I'm just gonna make it a little bit larger. Okay, black as our foreground color. Okay, again, because we have a white mask. And I'm just going to start masking in, or I should say, masking in this waterfall area. Okay. All right. And one thing you might do is you just might go like all the way around the edge here. And notice, because it's a nice soft round brush, I don't have to go too crazy with it. Okay. And then if I use the, excuse me, the Alt or Option key, all right, I can come to this part of the mask and I can switch over to a hard edge brush and then just fill all that in. It just makes masking in a little bit easier. The other thing you can do, if you want, you can use your lasso tool, or if you're comfortable using a pen tool. All right. And there you go. And then if we turn that mask off, turn it on, we can see that we have this nice waterfall effect. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Now for the last and final step for this waterfall, and the one that I feel makes it look best. And if you want, I'll once I do this, I can duplicate this frames thing and do it for the other one. Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to hide this top layer. Okay. I'm going to hide it temporarily. I just need the waterfall. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a clone stamp layer. All right. So Control Alt Shift E, or Control Option Command E on the Mac, I believe. All right. And it's going to create a clone stamp layer. So this is basically everything that you see from all those lower layers combined into a single one. Oops, and I have my brush selected. Okay. All right. And what we're going to do for this one is we're going to do a blur effect. All right. This is what we're going to add a little bit of blur to just really enhance that waterfall and kind of give it that silky effect. Okay. So most people will go to filter, blur, filter, blur, and they might pick like a Gaussian blur or motion blur. I'm not a fan of those for this. What we're actually going to do is we're going to go to our blur gallery. So filter, blur gallery. And in the blur gallery, we're going to select path blur. Path blur. Okay. The reason I like path blur, it's not obvious with this one. But if you have a waterfall where cascades go in slightly different directions, you're able to apply a path to each one of those different directions. Okay. So by default, it gives us this little arrow here. Okay. So I'm just going to select any node, it doesn't matter, and I'm going to hit the delete key and remove it. Okay. Because what I want to do is I want to come down here. All right. And if you notice, I have this thumbtack. Okay. I'm just going to go to the top of the waterfall, click and drag to the bottom of the waterfall, and I'm going to follow the shape of that waterfall. Okay. And I'm going to do it in several places. All right. Because you never know if it changes any place. Oh, we got a really crazy artifact going in the center here. Give it a second to update. There we go. Now, I don't care what it looks like on the outside, okay? And because we are in this path blur tool, we have our tool settings on our right panel, all right? So path blur, okay? Basic blur, all right? spread of 50, taper 0, centered blur is checked, and edit blur shapes is unchecked. And we're just going to keep it at the default. Okay. If you want, you can increase. You don't want to go too much, because what happens is, remember, we have the top of the waterfall where it breaks over to where the pond ends there. And then we have rocks on the bottom. Okay. We want to keep in mind that, we have those. We don't want to create too much of a halo from those. Okay. As a matter of fact, if we want, we can probably eliminate it by increasing our tapers. Okay. All right. Once we have that, all right, so let's go. Maybe I'll do 80%. Okay. We're going to hit OK or hit the return key. And it's going to do what it's got to do. And it applied that blur effect to that clone stamp layer that we created. Okay. Now, excuse me, holy cow. Give me 1 second. Now, here is I'm going to activate our previous layer. Okay. So now we have a little bit of that that waterfall layer coming through. Okay. I'm going to take advantage. And because it looks so radically different, we're going to change that in a second. Because it looks so radically different, I'm going to take advantage of that and use it to clean up the edge of my mask. So I'm going to go ahead and select a soft round brush. I make the size down a little bit. Okay, again, black is my foreground color. All right, and I'm just going to come in and make sure you're on the mask. I'm just going to come in and clean up and make it till this just goes over to that edge where it kind of just breaks over. Just breaks over. Okay. I'll bring it right to that upper edge. I'm just cleaning up the edge of that mask. All right, there's a little rock there I want to preserve. All right, so that rock, I want to go around it. All right, as a matter of fact, let's see. Bring some of that rock back in. All right, clean up maybe the edge here. All right, there we go. So pay attention to any feature on the waterfall. All right, and we're gonna go in. All right, we have bushes over here, so I might go with like a 10% and then just kind of bring some of those white as my foreground color. I might bring some of this vegetation back. All right, because it's not like the best mask. Okay. Bring back some of that vegetation. I'm going to increase maybe 50%. Okay, bring back some of that vegetation. There we go. X. Work around this fallen log here. All right. Bring back these rocks. Come back to 100%. Bring back some of these rocks here. Okay. Where is it? X. Come up right up to these rocks. There we go. Clean up this edge. Clean up this edge. Clean up that edge. All right. Remember, your effect is only as good as your mask. So spend a little time making sure you have a good mask. Okay. There we go. right along that edge, right along this edge of this rock. There we go. Okay. Now, that looks like an obviously blurred waterfall. All right. So we need to change it. So I'm going to make sure that I select my blur layer, and we're going to change the blend mode. All right. Remember, we used on these here, we used the lighten mode. Okay. On this layer, we're going to use the screen mode. Okay. And it really brightens up that waterfall. It really allows that underlying structure to come through. Okay. And this is why I like the lighten mode for the underlying images, is because it does retain a lot of that water, the waterfall structure. Okay. All right. And that's pretty much it. We have, let's see, before and after, before and after. Okay. All right. I'm going to actually let's I'm going to make a duplicate of this frames layer. Okay. And we're going to call this frames lighten. Okay. Just so you see what it means, it's all about. Okay. And I'm going to drop this. Let me make a, yeah, let me drop that in. Okay. And then this one here, I'm going to hide that upper one. I'm going to go ahead and change this to screen. All right. And bring the opacity down to, I don't know, 30%. Yeah, about 30%. Let's type that in, 30%. Okay. So here we have a nice, okay. So that's frames, and oops. Let's call this screen. Okay. Just so you see the difference. Okay. So that's what it looks like with the screen mode. Okay. And this is what it looks like with the lighten mode. All right. And then it's just, use your subjective reasoning as to which one you like best. Okay. Personally, I think lighten looks a little bit more realistic. So I like that mode. Okay. Any questions on how to get that waterfall effect? Pretty good. All right. Okay. The rest, I'm just going to go ahead and finish off editing the image. Once you have your effect, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this screen. I don't like it. Okay. Now, I want to point out the reason you need this bottom layer. All right, the comp that we duplicated from the top. All right, because if we didn't have that layer, in this case it's not doing too much. Sometimes, and like the really actually, let me see if anything is visible. Sometimes you will see a little bit of that checkerboard transparency come through. Okay. Especially if you have misaligned layers and one of the layers is a little bit misaligned, you'll see it come through. All right. And you'll see that the checkerboard. Now the checkerboard pattern won't translate to an actual checkerboard when you export. It just translates to a little bit of a transparent area if you export to like a PNG. That's basically what it means. So I keep that comp background layer to avoid any issues of any transparent pixels created from our blend modes. Okay. All right. Especially, I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of the screen mode because it's more obvious when you use a screen mode because you're applying a transparency to the layers. Let's see. Here we go. I'll recreate it. Screen, enter. We don't need that one. Shift, screen, 30%. Okay. All right. So we've applied a 30% transparency. All right. See, you can see the that checkerboard pattern come through. All right. See how much duller it looks? Okay. You need that background, that opaque background layer if you do it with the screen mode. Okay. All right. At this point, you have yourself a nice waterfall. You can just, call it quits. But we're going to go ahead and continue editing this as if it were a landscape image. All right. So now at this point, I'm going to just take top layer, bottom layer, except for the comp. I'm going to group that together, rename this as waterfall. Okay. Everything else from here on, it's all just adjustment layers. Okay. So what are we going to adjust? Well, that sky is very, very light and bright and kind of competes against that steeple. All right. And also because it's so light, it just kind of pulls the eye up, into the top part of our image. So I'm going to go ahead and create a mask for our sky. So fortunately, we have select sky. All right. We got to make sure that we have an actual layer selected. Select sky. Okay. Give it a second. All right. We have here our marching ants. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and click on my favorite curves. No, actually, I think what I'm going to do first is I want to bring some of the sky structure out. And one of the nice things that Photoshop recently did in the, one of its recent updates is that they gave us a clarity and dehaze layer, which before was only available in Adobe Camera Raw or in Lightroom. Now we have it as a layer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And because I had that selection, you're going to notice that I also now have a nice little mask. Okay. So I'm going to add a little bit of clarity, bring some of that structure up. Okay. And of course, what it's going to do is it's going to take all those sensor spots or lens spots or whatever that is and really enhance it and make me look like a amateur photographer. I'm not going to waste your time or mine to get rid of all these. We'll just leave them there. Just know that if this is your image, you would have to deal with it. Okay. I have to deal with it, but not for tonight. Okay. So now we have a little bit of structure, not a lot. Okay. I think this clarity button can probably use a little bit of dehaze, brings out the structure a little bit more. Okay. And now you notice that it kind of separates itself from that steeple. Look at that. Looks good, huh? All right. Next thing I want to do is the color overall on this is little off. I think there's a lot of warmth. I don't mind the warmth on the lower part, but maybe it's a little bit too warm on a white building and definitely a little bit too warm in the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another curves adjustment. Okay. And this time what I'm going to do is instead of using the curves adjustment, I'm just going to go to my channel. All right. So if you click on where it says RGB, we can see the individual channels. We're going to go here to the blue channel. All right. And if you notice, if you go up and to the left, we are adding blue. If we go down and to the right, it is adding yellow. Okay. Blue and yellow are on the opposites of each other. Okay. So if you're adding one, you are subtracting from the other. All right. So if you're adding blue, you are removing yellow. Okay. And that's pretty much what I want to do to the sky. I want to tone down that yellow by adding a little bit of blue. Now, if we go too much, obviously it's going to be ridiculous. That does not look like a realistic blue. I just want to add just a touch of blue. Okay. All right. And if you want, we can add it in the darker areas. Okay. So I click on the darker shadow part, and then in the white section, see the spike here? All right. Click there and bring it back down, and that's going to neutralize our lights. Okay. I don't want it to go too far down, just enough so that the white doesn't look as blue. Okay, I want to really incorporate blue into the shadow areas. All right, so you can see it's a very subtle curve here. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have clarity and haze, so that's going to be our texture. Texture. Oops. Okay. And this is going to be our cool sky. Okay. But right now it's being applied to everything. All right. You notice that the rocks look blue. The stone wall, the bridge looks blue. The church looks neutral white. I kind of like that. Okay. But the trees no longer have that bright yellow green. They're now been toned to the blue. So we got to keep this just to the sky area. Well, it just so happens that we have a nice, wonderful mask that we can borrow. Okay. So if we press and hold down the Alt, or select that mask, press and hold the Alt or Option key, and then click and drag it from one layer to the other, it's going to copy it. Okay. Right. And you can see, look at the green. All right. If I toggle it off, see how bluish that green looks? So as we toggle it back on, we're removing that blue from that lower section. Okay. But we also removed it from the building, which, you know what? I don't see much difference there. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, there is a noticeable difference. But you know what? I don't mind the warm building. Okay. However, let's say you don't want that building to be as warm. How can we incorporate the building into this mask that we just duplicated, okay? Well, the nice thing is we can go here to our selection tool, all right? And we have object selection tool, okay? And we're going to come over here, and I'm just going to make a lasso around the building, all right? Give it a second. It's got to go through, and there it is. It's made its selection. I'm going to zoom in. Selected something outside it, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my regular lasso tool, okay? And what I normally do is I keep it on the add, all right? The two squares added together, that's our add, okay? Which allows me to add to my selection. In this case, I want to remove. So if I press and hold my Alt or Option key, all right, I can remove from the mask, okay? It did not select this tree. Unfortunately, there's a lot of the church going visible through the tree. So you know what? I'm just going to select that whole section of the tree and incorporate it into the mask. If that gets a little cool, I don't think it's going to be that big an issue. All right. Likewise, sections of the church through the trees are visible. I might come in and play around a little bit with it, you know. Press the Alt key to remove. Otherwise, we're adding. I want to add these sections here. All right, add the sections. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Okay. All right, there we go. Let's look up here. All right, it missed some areas. All right, this upper part, I don't think I need. I'm just going to, because there's no white in there. That's just whatever the lightning rod is. All right, it did miss some of this. Okay, I'm not going to go crazy, but obviously if you do this, you'll want to clean up your mask. All right, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold my Alt or Option key. All right, and then you want to select your mask, Alt or Option. All right, now we go into our mask mode. Oh, let's see, we want to get rid of that. Yeah, okay. And what I want to do is I'm going to delete all of that. So hit the delete key because I have black as my foreground, white is my background. So when I hit the delete, whatever color my background is, that's what it's going to delete to. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and Control Command D to deselect. All right, and we have this halo left over. That's not a problem. I'm going to select my hard round brush. I'm going to select white as my foreground color. All right, and I'm just going to get rid of all that. Okay. All right, and change to a soft round, and we're just gonna clean this up around here. All right, and I'm just dressing the mask a little bit. There we go. Okay, and now what we have is we have effectively added the church to our blue tone. Okay, so we go back to our layer. You can see how that blue is now affecting the church. Okay, everybody see how I did that? All right. Okay. Now, I kind of like the way that the spire kind of offsets against the sky. But if it was a little bit too bright, obviously, make a change. Okay. All right. The other thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of a vignette to the sky. Okay, a little vignette. Now we can do this in a couple of ways. Have like a transition, linear transition coming from the top down. Okay, but I think I might want to do something a little bit more. All right. So I'm going to go select my top layer. Okay, because I want to add a new layer, a new curves adjustment. Okay. And again, that curves adjustment has a blank layer. Okay. And what I want is I just want the sky. So again, we have the sky right here. All right. So I'm going to take the sky, select it, or the sky mask, press and hold the Alt or Option key, click and drag it to that new layer, let go, and we now have a copy of that sky mask on that new layer. Okay, so now anything we do is going to be affecting that sky, right? And what I want to do is I just want to darken that sky. All right, just a touch. Okay, but because I want a vignette, what I want to do is I want to start removing some of this bottom sections. I just want just the upper parts to be darkened. All right, here's another trick. All right, I'm gonna reset it. All right, back to the default. Another trick you can use, all right, since we are utilizing blend modes, instead of a normal blend mode, we can go to darken or multiply. Darken obviously is not going to do anything, but if we hit the multiply, okay, you notice how that sky gets darkened a lot. Okay, that's a unique feature that gets applied to these curves adjustments. That's fairly unique. Okay, so in this case, it darkens it really, really nicely, and we can control it. All right, by just moving the curves adjustment up. Okay, all right, because previously, all right, I want you to notice this. With the normal mode, if you want to darken, we have to pull it down. All right, we are telling that we're telling Photoshop from this point, which is our midtones gray, we want to darken it. So we're going to go and pull down to darken. All right, so if we go all the way down to here, we're changing it to black. All right, because if we go the opposite, if we're going up, we are adding lightness. Okay, everybody follows that? We want to darken it, we're going to go down. All right, here's the difference. I'm going to reset this. I am not darkening it by pulling down. I am darkening by changing the blend mode. Okay? So in essence, it would be as if I took that curve and brought it down to this point. Okay? So now if I want to, in the normal mode, if that was too dark and I wanted to lighten it, I would have to go up, right? Make sense? Okay, because we artificially darkened it with the blend mode, now in order to lighten it, we still got to go up, all right? But we're starting from the default position instead of the darkened position where we would have otherwise. Okay, so this is a nice way to think about it. Okay. And the nice thing is if we go the other way, we are going to darken. Okay. What's the benefit of this? In probably none. All right. It just gives you a neutral default starting point to work off of. All right. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so I'm going to keep it to the default for now. All right. What I want to do is I want to create a vignette. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a nice soft round brush and I'm going to make it nice and large. All right. And the way I do this is I just press and hold the Alt or Option key, and then holding my mouse button, I drag to the left to expand, right, drag to the right to shrink down. All right, so I'm going to go, oops, nice and large. Black as my foreground color. All right, make sure black is your foreground color. All right, and I'm going to tap, tap, tap. There we go. Okay. And now you can see if I open up my mask, you can see how it kind of just added that little bit of darkness to it from the brush. Okay, that's all it did. And then now we can go back to our adjustment layer and we can adjust the amount of that vignette. Okay. All right. Any questions on any of that? All right. One final thing, maybe. I don't know. That looks pretty good. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Any questions on any of those adjustment techniques that were just done? You can group those, rename it adjustments. And there we go. Okay. Any questions?
You know what I like is that copy of the map.
Yeah, let me tell you, it saves a lot of time and effort. Just make sure you don't inadvertently delete your masks and then you have to rebuild them all over again. Okay. All right, and there you have a nice little landscape photo with a artificially created, very nice silky waterfall effect. And all done without the use of ND filters, without the use of a tripod. And in essence, you don't even need to close up your lens to f/22, f/36, or f/48 or whatever, you can keep it at 5.6 or whatever you want to set it to. Okay. Obviously for landscapes, you do want the depth of field. So most landscapes are shot at roughly about f/16, f/11, f/16, depending on your lens. So keep it at f/16. Set your exposure to get a proper exposure. You need at least 10 images. All right, you see the results that I got with just 10 images. 10 images at the minimum. Maximum, I don't think any more than 20. But to be honest, this is a very passable effect. So as long as you have 10, you're good to go. You're good to go.
Now you tell me to do f/16 for landscape. All this time I've been doing f/11. It's like, yeah, okay.
You can do, come on. It doesn't have to be f/16. It can be f/11.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, then,
Most most diehard landscape photographers go for that F16.
Okay, thank you.
You know, it depends on what effect you want to get. All right, just realize the bigger your opening, the shallower your depth of focus is going to be, and it's going to really affect maybe not necessarily the distance parts of your landscape, but definitely the foreground part of your landscape. All right. So if you're trying to maintain a lot of detail in that foreground part of your landscape, go to F16. Okay.
Sometimes I don't want a lot of detail in the foreground.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
I've been dinged in competition for having too much of a foreground, but you know how I feel.
Well,
Competition.
okay.
You want to say, Bob?
Well, let me tell you something about. Oops.
I like what I like, not the competition. Thank you, Bob.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody else in North Haven agrees with me about competition.
However, if gaining a medal or a ribbon or a prize is part of your goal of entering into competitions, then you have to play the political game. All right?
See, I don't want to do it. Case in point, you did a nice skate scene, and yeah, I know you go in the woods once in a while. I go in the woods a lot. And I said this to somebody the other day. I'm more interested in pleasing the people who are into nature and who go into the woods and three people who sit in front of a screen or some judges are using their iPhones for judging and it's I most of these judges don't go two things most of these judges don't go into the woods
Right.
and when it comes to photojournalism, these judges don't know the first damn thing about photojournalism. I know more about photojournalism than most of these judges.
Yeah.
And what's funny is on D-Day, on the anniversary of D-Day, I read a book that Robert Capa wrote. Um, he was a war photographer, World
Yeah.
War II. He was there at Normandy, and couple of other wars. And the thing is, I looked through the pictures of the book, and it's like, okay, this is great journalism, but they would never win in competition. But who cares? This is
Well, it depends on the type of competition. If it's a photojournalism competition, that's a different story.
well, yeah, but
You're
it's an entirely different animal.
Yeah, but you're also you gotta understand that
Yeah,
on a professional level.
I don't like it. I don't like it, and I'm not going back to that group next year because the group nothing. I learned a lot from that group. I like the people in that group. I don't want to be in a group where the main focus of a group is competition. What pissed me off, you're not going to have to spice up the word pissed off, right, Doug? What pissed me off is I had a terrific picture of Coach Gino Auriemma at the microphone for his for the victory parade, winning his 12th NCAA championship. He's in the Hall of Fame and all that. And I thought it was a good picture. Okay, it's not perfect artistry, but it was a good piece of journalism. One guy gave me an 8, and another gave me an 8.5. Fine, those two. But one person gave me an effing 7. An effing 7.
Yeah.
And that after that, I just said that's it, and I haven't done anything with that group since November. And my attitude is, hey, when you go out and win 12 national championships, then you can come back and say my picture is a 7. That's my attitude.
You know, I feel you, Bill. I feel you because for the longest time, I felt the same way. I never really entered competitions because one, my clients don't give a shit if I win a competition or not. Okay. Secondly, what most of the competitions around here are looking for is not what I photograph on a daily basis
Same here with what I do.
at all. All right. So I would have to go out of my way to photograph something to meet whatever criteria for the the current month's um, competition is. All right, and then submit it and hope that I get a judge that understands and has the language to properly judge an image. Okay. And those are hard and few, far between to get a good judge. All right. Most judges in amateur clubs are amateurs themselves. So they're judging on the basis of their limited knowledge of vocabulary. And what I mean by vocabulary is not how they can create words, is that the visual language to describe the image. Okay. And this is something that develops over time. Understanding other photographers, like being able to reference Robert Capa, uh, you know, um, uh, um, Maplethorpe. Oh, anybody see the Maplethorpe movie? That was pretty good. To be able to, reference other photographers, photography movements, photography styles, and be able to speak on it with a certain amount of knowledge in reference to judging your image, that's where you gain the most value. But if you just got, Joe Schmo from the club next door who's doing a guest judging for your club as a favor, yeah, you're not, yeah, what are you really learning? So I was in the same way. But the thing is, if uh, if competition isn't important to you, if gaining ribbons isn't important to you, sometimes getting that feedback, you can glean some little bits of information from it. Okay, you may not always agree. The thing is, you can always discard the things that you don't agree with, but occasionally you might come across a little bit of information that says, oh, wow, I never thought of it in that perspective. I never thought of doing that. I never thought, my image required that. But now that it's been voiced and I can see, you're basically seeing your work from a different perspective, it just informs you a little bit better and educates you a little bit more and just helps broaden your ability to create better images. Okay. But again, you got to take it with a grain of salt and take it as it comes.
Looking out my window and I'm seeing fantastic cloud formation. I've never seen it look like this.
Get your camera.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Hey, don't laugh. There was one.
The tips are real bright and below is like dark. And just a weird, never seen a cloud formation like that.
There was one night I was on a Zoom call for a North Haven Camera Club meeting. I think it was competition, and I saw this deep fuller red, a deep red outdoors. And for some strange reason, I got into my pajamas before the 7 o'clock meeting because the meeting goes to 9 o'clock, and 9 o'clock I'm getting ready for bed. So I'm in my pajamas and I'm seeing this, and I went and changed my clothes, and went out to the street and took a picture, and I came back in. I posted it on the Plainville Talk, and somebody said to me the next day, "That's great, that's great." I said, "Yeah, I had to get out of my pajamas to do that." And she said she would have gone and stayed in her pajamas to go out.
Yeah. Yeah. So
May I ask a question? Well, is Alan still here?
Alan, you still here? Yeah.
I'm still here. Okay. Did you tell me that I know you have an R7, and when we went uh, shooting, taking pictures of eagles, taking pictures of eagles, I told you that my lens doesn't autofocus well at 400 millimeters. You have a Canon, I have a Tamron. And did you tell me that all zoom lenses have that problem?
No, I have a Sony to begin with,
Yes.
and what I might have mentioned, I mentioned it to Duck as well. I'm using a 1.4 extender with my 200 to 600. A 2x extender is no good.
No good, no.
Right.
On just about every single model camera, the 2x extender isn't worth the money you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I might have said something along those lines.
Okay. Because I went on, I have to try it with my new camera. I went on the Zoom call that Milford Photo had the other day about taking pictures at the zoo, and these were Tamron people, and I wrote in the chat what my problem was, and the person from Tamron said, sometimes there is a problem, and it could be fixed if that's the problem, and he gave me a link to go on to do that, and so I can ask for an estimate.
I mean, there's all kinds of issues that that lenses may have, zoom lenses may have anyway. I mean, we might also be talking about the autofocus part where I toggle between 3 different autofocuses during a shoot. I have a center spot. I have a entire wide angle shot. Speaking of exposure, auto zone, autofocus zone, center zone, a little bit wider zone, and then a full frame zone. And I toggle between the 3 of them. Maybe that was it, because I think most cameras nowadays, within your custom settings, you should be able to go through and reset. So maybe that was Linda Trotsky I was talking about that one. Anyway,
Yeah, what he also said was use the spot zone, so I could try that. Plus, I have a new camera now, so I'll try a couple of things for it.
yeah, I mean, here again, put it on a tripod
Mm-hmm.
and just in your backyard, put it on a tripod, focus on one particular point, and go through your f-stop view.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
using that one particular spot to go through your automatic focus modes. Okay, and then look at how they react.
Okay.
I was shooting birds today. I was shooting birds, and it was driving me crazy because I wanted to use, I wanted, they were up in the sky, so I could use the full frame. But then they dip into the trees, and the trees start to get more focused than the birds do. So, so anyway, so then you got to go through, then you got to go into your
Go into manual, go into manual.
Bob, you are absolutely right, because I've gotten good with manual. Plus, with the R7, you can have it where a little
It
gizmo
doesn't
dot
stop
turn-
first and you can adjust it.
and it turns green. It's like, oh, this is great. I was using, I'm doing flowers now. And it was like, I was having trouble. It's like, well, let me try manual. And I noticed the R7, which my older cameras didn't have, was it turned green, a triangle, a little triangle turns green when it gets to be manual. So that's a big help. Um, I hope to get back to doing birds again. I had two things happen to me. I had skin surgery on my leg, and I have a restriction, not, no exercising or anything heavy for 2 weeks. Hopefully that ends this Wednesday. And I ended up with tennis elbow in my left arm. So I'm like walking wounded at my back.
Called old age. Called old age. Welcome to the club. Thank you very much, Doug.
All righty, guys. I hope everybody had a good time, learned something new. We will see you next month. We got 2 extra days this month, so nothing next week or the week after. We'll see you on the first of the next. Stay safe, and we'll catch you on the rebound. All right, guys, be good.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.